The bell above the restaurant door chimed softly as the man stepped inside, shaking off the cold and blending instantly into the low-lit elegance of the place. Polished wood floors reflected warm amber light. Jazz murmured from hidden speakers. The air smelled of seared meat, butter, and quiet money. It was the kind of restaurant where people spoke in lowered voices and checked reflections in their wine glasses. He paused just long enough to take it all in. Nothing here was accidental. Not the spacing between tables. Not the way the host's smile appeared exactly 2 seconds after eye contact. Not the confidence with which the place carried itself. He had signed off on every detail years ago: menus, uniforms, lighting, temperature. Yet standing here now, dressed plainly, he might as well have been a stranger. Which was the point? "Table for one?" the host asked. "Yes," he replied. The host glanced briefly at his jacket, his shoes, then nodded. "Right this way." A corner booth. Predictable. Comfortable. Observational. He slid into the seat, his back to the wall, eyes scanning the room without appearing to. Couples leaned close over candles. A group of businessmen laughed too loudly near the bar. A woman in a silk dress checked her phone every few seconds as if waiting for permission to leave. And then she appeared. She moved between tables with practiced efficiency, a tray balanced easily on one hand, her posture straight but guarded. Her uniform fit perfectly, pressed and clean, though the fabric at the elbows had softened from use. Her hair was pulled back neatly, curls restrained not for style but for compliance. What caught his attention wasn't her appearance, it was her awareness. She noticed everything. When a glass was nearly empty, she was already there. When a customer shifted impatiently, her eyes flicked over before the sound ever reached her. She adjusted her pace depending on who she approached, like someone used to reading rooms quickly for survival. She stopped at his table. "Good evening," she said. Her voice was calm, even, with no hint of forced cheer. "Can I start you with something to drink?" "Water is fine," he said. She nodded, pen poised. "Still or sparkling?" "Still." She turned to go, then paused. "Are you dining alone this evening?" "Yes." "Very well." A slight hesitation. "Our ribeye is popular tonight." He looked up at her again, more closely this time. There was intelligence there. Not the rehearsed politeness of service industry training, but something sharper, something measured. "I'll have that," he said. "Medium rare." "Of course." She made a note. "Any allergies?" "No." "Sides?" "What do you recommend?" Her lips curved, just slightly, as if surprised by the question. "Creamed spinach pairs well. So do the roasted potatoes." "I'll trust you." Her smile flickered, real this time, but brief. "I'll put that in." As she turned away, a voice cut through the room. "Hey! What's taking so long over there?" The man didn't have to look to know who it was. The tone carried authority wrapped in irritation. The manager strode toward them, jacket crisp, expression tight with the practiced confidence of someone used to being obeyed. His gaze locked on her. "We don't stand around chatting," he said, loud enough to be heard by nearby tables. "This isn't a coffee shop." "I was taking his order," she replied calmly. "Then take it faster." A faint ripple of discomfort moved through the room. Eyes dipped. No one intervened. "Yes, sir," she said, already stepping back. The manager turned to the man in the booth, smile snapping into place. "Everything okay here, sir?" "Fine," the man replied evenly. "Good." The manager's eyes flicked back to her. "Let's move." She walked away without another word. The man leaned back slightly, fingers tightening around the edge of the table. This wasn't a one-off. He recognized the pattern, the casual dominance, the public correction meant to remind everyone of their place. He'd seen it in reports, in emails softened by corporate language. Seeing it in person felt different. He watched her move from table to table, absorbing small slights without flinching. When she returned with his water, she placed the glass down gently, careful not to make a sound. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome." She hesitated, then added quietly, "The steak will be out shortly." She turned to leave, but something in her movement changed, barely perceptible. As she adjusted the napkin beside his fork, her hand brushed the table. Something slid beneath his fingers. She didn't look at him. "Enjoy your evening," she said, voice steady, and walked away. His gaze dropped to the table. A folded piece of paper rested beside his plate. His heart gave a small, involuntary jolt. He didn't touch it at first. He watched her retreating back, the way she merged into the rhythm of the restaurant, as if nothing had happened. The manager passed her again, murmuring something he couldn't hear. She nodded once and kept going. Slowly, deliberately, he unfolded the note. 4 words stared back at him. "I know who you are." The room seemed to tilt. He read it again, certain he'd misunderstood. "I know who you are." No name. No explanation. Just certainty. His fingers went cold. That was impossible. He forced himself to breathe normally, to keep his expression neutral. Around him, the restaurant carried on, cutlery clinking, laughter rising and falling, the low hum of conversation uninterrupted by the quiet earthquake happening at his table. He glanced up. She was at another booth now, pouring wine, her face composed, unreadable. How? He had come alone. No security. No announcement. He had paid in cash at the door to avoid a digital trail. This visit wasn't on any schedule. No one was supposed to recognize him. The manager's voice rang out again. "Table 12 is waiting. What's the delay now?" "I'm handling it," she replied. "Well, handle it faster." The man folded the note slowly and slid it into his pocket. His steak arrived moments later, cooked perfectly, juices pooling just right. She set it down without ceremony. "Is there anything else I can get you?" she asked. He studied her face. Up close, he noticed the faint exhaustion beneath her composure. Not physical tiredness, something deeper. Long-term. "No," he said. "This is fine." She nodded, then leaned in slightly, her voice dropping just enough that only he could hear. "You should read the rest when you're ready." Before he could respond, she straightened and walked away. His fork hovered over the plate. The rest? His pulse quickened. He reached into his pocket, unfolding the note again. He hadn't noticed before, there was writing on the back. His eyes traced the words slowly. "You fired my mother. 2016, compliance restructuring." The fork slipped from his fingers, clattering softly against the plate. He stared at the paper, the memory detonating in his mind, reports, signatures, a meeting he'd barely thought about since. A termination justified, documented, buried under layers of policy. He looked up. She was watching him now. Not with anger. With certainty. And in that moment, he realized this dinner was no longer about observation. It was about reckoning. The fork lay where it had fallen, resting against the rim of the plate. No one else noticed. The sound had been too small, swallowed by the room's polished noise, but to him it echoed louder than any shout. He forced himself to lift it, to cut into the steak, to chew as if his thoughts weren't spiraling inward. "You fired my mother." He replayed the sentence again and again, searching for distance, for doubt, for any way it might not be true. But memory didn't lie. He remembered the quarter. He remembered the restructuring. He remembered signing off on a list of names he'd never attached faces to. He remembered convincing himself it was necessary. Across the room, she moved with the same composed efficiency as before, but now every step felt intentional, every glance weighted. She wasn't watching him constantly, she didn't need to. She knew the note had landed where it needed to. The manager hovered near the bar, whispering sharply to another server, then gesturing toward her with irritation barely concealed. The man followed his gaze. The way authority sat on that manager felt heavier now, uglier. Not because it was new, but because it was familiar. A glass shattered near the kitchen entrance. The manager flinched, then snapped his head toward the sound. "Unbelievable," he muttered loudly. "This is what happens when standards slip." She bent down immediately, already grabbing a broom, though the spill wasn't hers. Another server tried to help. "I've got it," she said softly. The manager watched her crouch, then shook his head. "You know, attention to detail is everything in a place like this. Maybe if you focus more, mistakes wouldn't keep happening around you." The words landed with surgical precision, vague enough to deny intent, sharp enough to wound. She didn't look up. "Understood." The man at the booth felt something hot rise in his chest. Not anger alone. Shame braided into it. A woman at a nearby table shifted uncomfortably, her lips pressing together. Her companion leaned in, whispering something meant to soothe rather than correct. No one spoke up. The broom swept glass into neat lines. She stood, dustpan steady, dignity intact. When she passed his table again, she didn't meet his eyes. Not out of fear, out of control. The power, he realized, was no longer with him alone. He waited until she returned to refill his water. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. She paused. "Do what?" "Clean someone else's mess." Her gaze flicked up briefly. "It's part of the job." "That's not what he meant," he said. Her jaw tightened just a fraction. "No," she replied. "It wasn't." She filled the glass and moved to step away. "Why tell me?" he asked. She stopped. "Because tonight you're watching," she said, still not facing him. "And people behave differently when they think they're unseen." The words settled heavily between them. Before he could press further, the manager's voice cut in again, closer this time. "Is there a reason you're lingering?" he asked her sharply. "I was refilling his water." "You can do that without standing around," he said, then turned to the man with a practiced smile. "Apologies if service feels slow tonight." "It doesn't," the man replied. The manager nodded, then leaned closer to her, lowering his voice just enough to be deniable. "Remember where you are." She met his eyes. For the first time, there was no submission in her expression. Just a calm that unsettled. "I do," she said. The manager straightened, unsettled himself, and walked away. The man exhaled slowly. He took another bite of steak, though he could barely taste it now. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. He watched the dynamic unfold with painful clarity. How easily authority disguised cruelty. How efficiently silence protected it. He had built policies to prevent this. Training modules. Reporting channels. And yet here it was, alive and breathing under warm lights and linen tablecloths. She returned once more, this time carrying dessert menus. "On the house," she said, placing one gently in front of him. "I didn't order dessert." She leaned in slightly. "Neither did they," she said softly, nodding toward the couple at table 12. "But the manager comped theirs after the delay." He glanced over. The couple laughed, unaware. "Why?" he asked. "Because they complained," she replied. "And because they were louder than me." Something inside him shifted. Not with sudden realization, that had already happened, but with resolve forming where denial used to sit. The manager approached again, irritation creeping back into his smile. "We're closing soon. I'll need you to finish up." She nodded. "Of course." As she walked away, he noticed the way other staff looked at her, not with disdain, but with something closer to quiet admiration. The kind reserved for someone who absorbs blows meant for everyone else. He reached into his pocket, unfolding the note again, smoothing the creases with his thumb. "You fired my mother." The words were steady. Not accusatory. Factual. He wondered how many nights she had rehearsed this moment. How many times she had imagined saying it out loud and decided not to. How long she had waited for the right conditions. The manager's voice rose suddenly near the bar. "I don't care how busy you are. If you can't keep up, maybe this isn't the place for you." The room stilled. She stood there, shoulders squared, hands clasped in front of her. "I'm keeping up," she said evenly. "Barely," he snapped. "You think this is a charity? People come here for excellence." "So do I." she replied. The manager laughed once, sharp and humorless. Then prove it. A few heads turned. The tension was no longer invisible. The man at the booth set his fork down carefully. That's enough, he said. The manager turned, startled. Excuse me? You heard me, the man replied calmly. That's enough. Silence spread. The manager straightened, clearly irritated at being corrected by someone he'd already categorized. Sir, I assure you. I'm sure you do, the man said. But I'm still eating. The manager hesitated, then forced a smile. Of course. Enjoy the rest of your evening. He walked away, but the room had changed. The power he carried didn't sit as comfortably anymore. She approached the table again, this time slower. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. Yes, he replied. I did. She studied him for a moment, eyes searching. You're not who you pretend to be. No, he admitted. But neither are you. A small breath escaped her, something like a laugh that never fully formed. I'll bring your check, she said. He nodded. Take your time. As she walked away, he realized something else had shifted too. This was no longer about the past alone. It was about what would happen next. He watched her disappear into the kitchen, the note heavy in his pocket, the truth heavier still. And for the first time that night, he wasn't observing anymore. He was involved. The kitchen doors swung closed behind her, muting the dining room to a distant hum. Stainless steel counters gleamed under harsh lights, a different world from the soft glow outside. Orders were called, pans hissed, footsteps crossed in tight choreography. She moved through it all like she belonged there, but her mind was elsewhere now, focused, steady, waiting. He finished his meal slowly, not because he was hungry, but because leaving felt premature. He needed to see how this played out, needed to understand the woman who had turned his quiet inspection into something far more personal. He paid attention to the details he had once ignored, the way servers flinched when the manager passed, the way conversations died mid-sentence when his voice rose, the way tension lingered even when nothing was said. When she returned with the check, she didn't slide it across immediately. She placed it down, then stood there, hands folded lightly in front of her. You're still here, she said. So are you. For now. He met her gaze. We should talk. Her eyes flicked toward the manager's office, then back to him. Not here. When? She considered him carefully, as if weighing risk against inevitability. After closing. If you're still interested. I am. She nodded once and turned away. The minutes stretched. Chairs were stacked. Candles were snuffed out one by one. The room emptied until only staff remained, moving through end-of-night routines with practiced efficiency. The manager barked instructions, his voice sharper now that customers were gone, authority unchecked by witnesses. Make sure the bar's inventory is logged correctly this time, he snapped. I don't want another discrepancy. Yes, sir, someone replied. She finished wiping down a table, then removed her apron, folding it carefully. When she looked up, she found him still seated in the booth, jacket draped over the chair beside him. You stayed, she said. I said I would. She hesitated, then gestured toward a quieter corner near the windows. We can talk there. They sat across from each other, the space between them no longer buffered by pretense. The restaurant felt stripped now, bare, honest, less forgiving. You came here to watch, she said. To see how things really work. Yes. And now? Now I'm realizing how much I missed. She studied his face, searching for something. People like you don't miss things, she said. You overlook them. The words weren't sharp. They didn't need to be. I want to understand, he replied. Start wherever you want. She took a breath. My mother believed in systems. In procedures. She thought if you followed the rules, they would protect you. He nodded slowly. She reported a senior manager. She continued. Nothing dramatic. Just documented behavior. Patterns. She trusted the process. Her hands tightened briefly, then relaxed. 2 months later, she was let go. Performance issues, they said. No appeal. No explanation that held. He remembered the file now. The phrasing. The clean justification. She got sick not long after, she said. Stress, they said. We lost our insurance. I was in my second year of undergrad. I'm sorry, he said quietly. She shook her head. I didn't come here for apologies. Then why? Because you needed to see the consequences of decisions made at a distance. The manager's office door opened behind them. Footsteps approached. Everything all right here? The manager asked, suspicion edging his tone. Yes, she replied calmly. We're finishing up. He looked at the man, eyes narrowing slightly. We're closed. I know, the man said evenly. The manager lingered, clearly uncomfortable with the dynamic he didn't understand, then walked away. She exhaled softly. You see? Yes, he said. I do. Silence settled again. I went to law school at night, she said. Full scholarship. Graduated top of my class. His eyebrows lifted slightly. Why here? Because debt-free degrees don't pay rent, she replied. And because sometimes the best place to study power is where it thinks it's invisible. He leaned back, absorbing that. I recognized you the moment you walked in, she said. You've aged. But not as much as you pretend. He almost smiled. I try. I waited, she continued. Watched how you watched. You weren't here to impress anyone. No. So I decided to test something. The note. She nodded. I needed to know if you'd look away once it became uncomfortable. He didn't answer immediately. I won't. She studied him again, then reached into her pocket and pulled out another folded paper, thicker this time. I didn't just come with a story, she said. I came with proof. She slid it across the table. He opened it carefully. Names. Dates. Internal emails printed and highlighted. Patterns laid bare. Complaints quietly redirected. Resignations clustered around the same supervisors. This isn't just about my mother, she said. It never was. His chest tightened. How did you get these? Public records. Whistleblower forums. Former employees who didn't think anyone still cared. He looked up at her. What do you want? She didn't hesitate. Change. Specifically? Transparency. Accountability. And for people like him. She nodded subtly toward the manager's office. To stop hiding behind procedure. The weight of it pressed down on him. This was larger than a single dinner, a single revelation. This was the system staring back at its architect. You know what happens next won't be quiet, he said. I know, she replied. That's why I waited for someone who could make it unavoidable. He folded the papers carefully. You're asking me to expose my own failures. I'm asking you to correct them. Another silence, deeper this time. I built this company believing I could scale fairness, he said slowly. I see now that I scaled distance instead. Her gaze softened, not with forgiveness, but with recognition. You still have a choice, she said. Distance, or responsibility. Footsteps echoed again. The manager appeared at the edge of the room, irritation barely masked. We're done here, he said sharply. Staff meeting tomorrow morning. Mandatory. She looked at him calmly. I'll be there. He scoffed and walked off. The man rose from the booth, jacket in hand. So will I, he said. She looked up at him, surprise flickering for the first time. You're going to reveal yourself? Yes. Tonight? No, he said. But soon. And not alone. She nodded slowly. Then this ends one way or another. He met her gaze. It ends with truth. As they walked toward the door together, the restaurant lights dimming behind them, the future pressed in close, uncertain, volatile, and finally impossible to ignore. And for the first time since she had slipped him that note, she allowed herself to believe that this reckoning might actually matter. Morning came quietly, without ceremony, but the weight of what was about to happen pressed heavily on everyone who walked through the restaurant's doors. Staff gathered earlier than usual, some yawning, others tense, all aware that something felt different. Whispers passed between them in fragments, about the customer from the night before, about the manager's mood, about the strange stillness that had settled over the place. She stood near the back, hands folded, posture steady. She hadn't slept much. Not from fear, but from anticipation. Years of swallowed words had led to this moment, and now that it was here, it felt oddly calm. Whatever happened next, she knew she had already crossed the point of no return. The manager entered last, irritation etched permanently into his face. He clapped his hands once, sharp and loud. "Let's make this quick," he said. "We've got standards to maintain." The staff formed a loose semicircle. He began speaking, about punctuality, about attitude, about respect for hierarchy. The words flowed easily. He had delivered versions of this speech many times before. His voice filled the room, confident, unchallenged. Then the door opened. The sound wasn't loud, but it carried. Every head turned. The man from the booth stepped inside, no disguise this time. His jacket was gone, replaced with a tailored suit that fit him like it belonged there. He didn't rush. He didn't smile. He simply stood, letting recognition dawn naturally, painfully. The manager faltered mid-sentence. "You," he said, confusion giving way to irritation. "This is a private staff meeting." The man met his gaze calmly. "I know." A murmur rippled through the room. Phones were discreetly lowered. Breath was held. The man took a step forward. "I'm here because I was invited." "By who?" the manager snapped. She stepped out from the back. "By me." Silence crashed down, heavy and absolute. The manager laughed once, sharp and dismissive. "This isn't funny." "No," the man said evenly. "It isn't." He reached into his pocket and placed a card on the nearest table. The logo gleamed unmistakably. The color drained from the manager's face. "I'm the person who signs your evaluations," the man continued. "And the one who approved your promotion." A few gasps escaped before anyone could stop them. "I came here anonymously to observe," he said. "What I saw was not excellence. It was intimidation," the manager stammered. "Sir, if there's been some misunderstanding." "There hasn't," the man replied. "I watched you humiliate staff. I watched you weaponize authority. And I watched silence protect you." The room felt impossibly small now. He turned slightly, gesturing toward her. "I was also handed documentation. Extensive documentation." The manager's eyes snapped to her, fury and panic colliding. "You went behind my back?" She met his stare without flinching. "You stood on it every day." The man opened the folder he carried, pages whispering as they shifted. Complaints ignored. Reports redirected. Patterns repeated. He closed it. "Effective immediately, you're suspended pending investigation." The manager's voice cracked. "You can't do this on hearsay." "This isn't hearsay," the man replied. "It's corroborated." Security appeared at the door, summoned silently. The manager's authority collapsed in real time, unraveling into disbelief, then anger, then something smaller. As he was escorted out, no one spoke. The man turned back to the staff. "I owe you more than this moment," he said. "I owe you a system that works." He paused, letting the words settle. "There will be independent reviews. Anonymous reporting that actually protects. And leadership retraining that isn't just performative." A few people nodded slowly. Others simply stared. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and his voice softened. "And I owe you a debt I didn't know I had." She felt it then, a tightness in her chest she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge. Not triumph. Release. He handed her another envelope. "I won't insult you with charity," he said. "This is an offer." She opened it slowly. "A position." Authority. Real influence. She looked up. You're asking me to stay. I'm asking you to help fix what I helped break. She considered him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. I will, she said. But not quietly. He smiled, just slightly. I'd be disappointed if you did. The meeting ended not with applause, but with something better, movement. People spoke to one another openly, cautiously hopeful. Shoulders straightened. The air felt lighter. Later, as sunlight poured through the windows and the restaurant prepared to open again, she stood by the same corner booth where it had all begun. He joined her, hands resting on the table. You changed the course of this place, he said. No, she replied. I reminded it of its responsibility. He nodded. Fair. She glanced around the room, the polished floors, the careful lighting, the space that had once felt like a stage for quiet cruelty. Funny thing, she said. You ordered steak that night. He smiled faintly. And left full. She met his eyes, steady and sure. Some meals do that, she said. They stay with you. As he walked away to face the consequences of leadership with open eyes, she remained, grounded in the knowledge that silence had finally been broken. And the note, small, folded, unassuming, had done exactly what it was meant to do. It had made power listen.